I'm so glad you're here to ease back, to rest, and to listen. Before we get started, I want to share this with you. Rest is many things. Rest is a portal. Rest is a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. Rest is fuel. Rest is a soft place to land. And most of all, rest is sacred. Rest is refuge. Rest is remembrance. Rest is a revelation. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And if you want to infuse more of the sacredness of rest into your day to day life, I have something for you. Check out my latest book, Rest is Sacred, at www.restisacred.com. Okay, enjoy your listen. Welcome to Leaders Devoted to Rest, where we explore how rest is a sacred practice that awakens both possibility and power within you. I'm your guide, Octavia, Faith, and Raheem. In each episode, I chat with a leader whose life has been positively transformed through their devotion to rest. Now, you know we aren't just going to sit up here and talk about rest. We are going to actually lay down. Each episode ends with a rest practice for you to try at home. Rest is fuel, and you are in the right place to fuel up. So grab your favorite pillow, blanket, cozy socks, and journal, and ease on back as we begin another restorative episode. Today, I am chatting with and resting with Cristina Aguilar, who is the founder of Aguilar Strategies, Movement Doula Offerings, and who is a doula for collective liberation and human rights. She has led reproductive and healing justice organizations in Colorado and nationally. As a queer Latina from the US Mexico borderlands, her movement offerings are liberatory, trauma sensitive, and lovingly rooted in healing and transformative justice. Christina is also a writer and curator, Reiki master, yoga nidra guide, steeped in spiritual practices that blend and reclaim her family's Mexican traditional healing lineage. In this episode, we discuss how radical community care and love will illuminate our path to collective liberation and how rest is an essential part of that. Welcome, Christina. Thank you for being here.
Thank you,
I am
Octavia.
going to invite you into this really simple, I find it profound ritual though, of stopping before we start. And so if you would join me in this moment, your eyes can be open, they can be closed. You can look away from the camera because we're on a camera here and just start by stopping. Notice your body and the support right there beneath your body and at your back. And then into this, it's maybe just atomic, but into this smallest awareness that you and I, that we, the listener, we are held. Into this space, let us receive 3 breaths, one in through the nose and out through the nose or the mouth.
Mm.
2 in through the nose and out. however it wants to come out.
Mm.
And then 3 in through the nose. Just this last one, just start to drink in the breath, continue to drink in the breath, and then exhale everything out. And whenever you're ready, if you close your eyes, you open them and welcome. Isn't that just like pressing a little reset button? It's sometimes a bigger reset button. Um, that is a rest practice. So I've already said your name. It feels important for you to say your name. And you know this, I always say it, that one of my favorite writers, poets, philosophers, creative souls, Sandra Cisneros, says that to say the name is to begin the story. So if you could share with us your name and share with us where you are arriving from.
Okay. Cristina Renee Aguilar. I closed my eyes like I was gonna go deep with all of a sudden I was like, "Okay, no."
Well, it's the beginning of this story that I'm about to tell you. So let's get into it. like I
I I rooted in deep there. So Cristina Renee Aguilar, and I am coming to you from, Colorado, which, is Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho lands.
Mhm, mhm. So how are you arriving right now?
Whew, I feel I definitely, as we were taking those breaths, I was so grateful, as I always am to you, Octavia, for the just the pausing and the nourishment that I received today, like a snake sort of uncoiling is how
Mhm,
I felt. I definitely felt a sense of like, okay, let's kind of be a little more supple and present. I think the call to presence, that the pause and the reverence for this work, this life's work, really brings to these moments.
mm,
I have this beautiful light that's just shining in very magically, and I can't help but feel that this moment is so blessed for so many reasons, and I'm deeply, deeply grateful for that. Definitely feeling emotional, uh,
mm,
being a little less than a week out from the US election, presidential election, also about being within the time, about a week and a half out of Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, which is such an important tradition that is a part of my practice and reclamations as a second generation Mexicana Americana. And I think just that access of being with what we love, being with what we lose, being
mhm,
with um, the reverence and the honoring of the totality of our existence and our resistance. I just am in really big feels about that.
mm. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot that's awake in this moment, right? In the molecule of this moment, there's much awakeness. And I'm curious for you, what has rest awakened within you? And your context can be resting through this particular, somewhat turbulent historical moment. So within the last week, what has rest awakened within you? Or you can broaden that context or shrink it to answer in the way that you feel most resonant to share.
Yeah. It's really I'm gonna go with where my kind of visual memory as I kind of sometimes look away. It's because I have kind of a little bit of a photographic and visual memory of where I'm almost carried to the scenes of how I've experienced different really pivotal moments in life. And, I'm, thinking about how, um coming to a deeper devotion to a rest practice really blossomed in 2021 through the work with you. That was preceded, I'll say briefly, by my own personal kind of revolution of leaving a big job that I loved as a former executive director in 2017 around the same time. To go to Mexico on an ancestral journey to actually go experience Day of the Dead in my ancestral homelands, and really to have a most radical pause in my life that, outwardly from a very kind of capitalistic way was really seen as you're just going to ascend and just keep doing the bigger, the big things. And for me, the radical big thing was to pause everything and to go back to, um, what was most sacred for me, which was to really be rooted and bathed in the homelands of my ancestors in Mexico. And that really catalyzed a shift for me that I don't even think I was fully aware of because I was so incredibly burnt out. I always say I was rebirthed through the movement for reproductive justice, with all nods to the foremothers of the South, our Black foremothers who founded that movement. We're 30 years strong now. And really had to pivot and not have for myself, it was really about not having a public burnout, not causing harm, recognizing that harm is too often caused in our movements. And I had a lot of privilege. I had a fellowship that where I had the money to pause and go take this ancestral trek. Around that time, the work of Trisha Hersey was really also being birthed, and I was seeing it in my weary-eyed moments on Instagram, like, "Look at this talking about rest and what?" And really feeling like I was resonant with, um with the movements that I was taking to recalibrate my life to deeper healing for myself, and with a deep awareness because a lot of the work that I had already done of how much that was also healing my lineage. And, kind of fast forward, I decide that my work is only going to be about healing justice. I was even doing campaign work, and had actually a beloved friend here, who asked me to work with her, and I was like, "I'm going to be bringing in all the healing stuff," and she's like, "Beautiful," and I was like, "Because I just cannot. This has to be what the work is about." Just from my heart of hearts, that was really in a mode of healing. So I'm flowing with rest. I remember my therapist telling me that when I felt guilty and felt unseen, and she was like, I think a part of collective liberation is resting too. Like, that is a part of the movement. And that was like such a aha epiphany for me to have anybody really say that to me in what were really hard moments for me of changing and pivoting. I, end up coming across your work, and I always try to remember how did I find Octavia's work, and end up, deciding after a little while, I think I was on a waiting list to get into your Devoted to Rest program. So this was 2021, and this memory that I'm having is that when I submitted the application for, Devoted to Rest, it was actually January 6th, the day of the insurrection. And I had already gone through 2020 deeply in a lot of healing work with the work that I was doing with another reproductive justice organization, holding hands, heads, hearts through all of the reckonings that we were having that year. And I remember I was sitting in the same space just across the way, submitting the application to you, and simultaneously getting texts from beloved um, activist friends saying, "Are you seeing what's happening?" And I was getting ready to go on a little retreat because that's a part of my rest practices. I go on these personal retreats, and I just remember feeling almost like something deeper was alchemizing within me. Like, I already felt a sense of I'm in a cocoon. I am calling forth this hope that I can deepen into rest and resistance and being held in community by a beautiful Black woman like you, a space held only for BIPOC folks, and just kind of feeling this sense of something so terrible that was happening, and just feeling like I'm already in this cocoon, a cocoon that I have been nurturing, that has been nurtured by so many, which is clear by the fact that I am still even existing in this moment. I mean, I remember just the drive out to where I was retreating, and I think it was I remember I was out at the retreat, the, cabin that I had rented when you let me know that I had gotten in, and your acceptance came with a rest practice, and I just, felt such a sense of, "This is where I'm meant to be. This is part of what is going to help me hold my ancestors, and hold my beloveds." And I think the awakening in me, much like now, as times would appear to get harder, because I always feel like that's a really important nuance, is that we have had such hard times that have just been, kind of under the surface, hidden, buried, erased, and that the the call to service that I have felt and have really followed has been completely supported by my courage, I think, to deepen into facing myself through giving myself the rest, despite the fact that, I hear familia, that, in Spanish, like a lot of times we're told, no seas floja, which is don't be lazy, and that was something that I, for a long time, every time I'd go to lie down, and sometimes it still comes up, like I hear that and I'm like, "No, I'm running a new groove." Like, for the very same reason that I might have been told this by people who I know loved me and wanna see me thrive, I'm doing this for them as much as I'm doing it for myself. And I, have felt, I think, such an awakening to a deeper sense of how much more I can be in service faithfully, knowing that I have these myriad of rest practices that I have committed to, and that I can recommit to them again and again, and show up in a way that I think I can sit silently as you are now, and there is just such a clarity about what is present because of our commitment and devotion to these practices.
Mm. Thank you for sharing how you sound and feel very awake to how the present, past, and future join hands, and how your rest is not an imaginary, but a very real portal um, into and through those connective points. And it's a healing practice, and it's a sacred practice, and it's a practice whereby you go and really drink deeply from the ocean of remembrance. Like, this
Mm,
is who I am, and this is who we are. Um, I was just with a really incredible coach. Her name is Stacy Shelton, and she said, in these times and at all times, really, because that's how she talks, at all
love
times,
it, love it.
we must remember that no person or system is our source.
Mm,
And what I heard in everything you said was just rest has really awakened you to, like, the deepness and richness of these systems ain't my source. Like, because even
totally.
in remembering, like, the ancestral memory, there's, like, if we keep going back and back and back and back and back, um, there is freedom someplace, right?
Yeah.
There is liberation and there is love. Um, so I also heard you say some things that you stopped doing, some things that you started doing, some shedding. I wouldn't call it like sacred shedding that had to
Mm.
unfold that brought you to this place. And I'm curious, what are you now committed to doing? And what are you deeply devotionally committed to no longer doing or to not doing on your journey?
So, I think I'm, as you know, I call myself, a movement doula for collective liberation and human rights. And I really have embraced that I have always, not always, but very often in my life held transitions in much the ways that doulas do. And I think that while I maybe had moments where I looked back and thought, "Oh, there's these crises moments, and here I come through to help hold it," and at times I think it felt burdensome, and yet I think through the healing and the pauses that I took and the reflections and the really being with what my offerings are, in particular around the year of 2020, and then fast forwarding to where we are now, in my rested and more recovered place, where I realized I was no longer burnt out, while holding deep crisis moments in 2020, I was like, I can do this. I can hold these moments of change and transition. And I actually love holding the possibility in that and the realities that and I feel like this is a teaching of yours as well that, in every breath, that the inhale, the pause, and the exhale, there's an element of faith. And there's almost like an element of the inhale is life giving and also life-taking, right? If the exhale doesn't go out and we're constantly in a cycle of living and dying and the faith that happens in between. And there's that pause that I think is so precious that I feel called to hold, to help hold the possibilities of these radical and sacred pauses that oftentimes people can get stuck in. I myself, as somebody who grew up, and had caregivers who didn't allow me to cry and things like that, where, I had to really unlearn and relearn how to let myself flow, how to not just suck it all back. Um, and, and I think that there is something so powerful in those moments of gestation, in those moments of faith, in those liminal spaces that I am deeply committed to holding for myself that I'm able to do through all of the practices of rest and the spiritual practices that I have reclaimed through my own lineages. And I think that this is where the nectar is, so to speak, is in being able to say, we can move through these places and spaces on our own time, recognizing that my pause is not your pause, that my liminal isn't necessarily your liminal place or space, but being really doulaed in that, in the way of just supporting and loving on and cheering on and softening on, whatever needs to happen to get to that next place and to allow for as big of a surrender that needs to happen as these transitions and changes are happening. And they're large and small, much like the teachings of Adrienne Murray Brown and biomimicry talk about the fractal or the idea that small is good, small is all, that there is something so big and what can seem small. And really, I'm committed to the honoring of that. And I feel like that is something that my doulaing, my holding of transitions, my holding of the sacred and really illuminating what I think can often be overlooked, and I think that that can be really hard for us as BIPOC folks, as activists, as community members, where it can feel like small shifts or the incremental shifts aren't enough, and I'm always gonna be here saying, "It is good enough, and there is something so much bigger happening here." And so that's a commitment to me that I think is really rooted and seeded and nourished by my practices, and I think when I think about what I'm not, um, doing or, about, I think I've really been touched by a quote of Stacey Abrams that I've been hearing in movement spaces since the election, and it's something about we will not concede or consent to anything that threatens our democracy or freedom. And it's like I wanna take it further and say, or our love or liberation, and really just holding, uh like, like it's almost like I see like a sacred constellation that's just saying, "I am holding what is sacred, what is about love and liberation, and really holding the most firm boundaries against anything that might be a threat to that, so that we can really honor our sacred lineages that go 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, and just really rooting in that. And I think also not being in fear either, really trying to counter that while the fear is there and present, that I can see it, I can move through it, I can, really engage in the somatic practices that so many beautiful teachers are deeply about, of just being with the feelings and letting it move through me so that I'm not staying stuck or stagnant on this important and sacred path of collective love and liberation.
Thank you. That's beautiful. When you talked about the small is all. So one of my favorite books about habit formation and sustaining new habits, which seems like, wait, we were super like deep, high cosmic level, and you want to bring this down to habits? Yes, I do actually. Because I am that, right? Like I am like cosmic to the stars and down to the grain of dirt
Mm,
beneath my feet. But when you were saying that, I thought, well, that book I was talking about is Atomic Habits, the smallest increment of
ah,
change, right? Is like a atomic, the smallest increment of change is still change. Yes. So you were saying it one way and I would say it that way. It made me curious as you were sharing what you are committed to doing and what you are committed to not doing. What's the atomic habit? Like, what
mm,
do you do on a daily basis that honors like, tell us one thing you do that you're like, "This is the atomic version of how I do this, hold the love
mhm.
and liberation. Hey, this is the atomic version of how I honor the boundary that protects all of this that I'm about in the space that I hold."
So I have thank you for that, and thank you for the connection and the nugget of the book too. I'm like, "Ooh, write that down." I'm trying to catch all the good things in this flow that we have going here. So I'm a daily, practitioner of many things, and I meditate every morning, and, I journal every day, and am thinking about even, like, the day after the election being an example of where I knew my phone was blowing up, and I, just kinda rolled over with my sensitive heart and thought, "You c oh, it's meditation time first." I knew what would be awaiting me, and maybe some things I didn't know, but I just was like, "It's the practice first. This is how you honor you. This is how you honor your beloveds. This is how you honor your ancestors." And it was a choice that was made easier by all of the practice and the devotion that preceded that moment. And that is powerful. I recognize that there was a lot of privilege for me in that too, that I have been a devotee and that I have been supported. And
Can I say something? So the word privilege to me is like it came and nothing was done for it.
Mm,
And I often say that it takes effort to get to ease. And I know choice by choice, action by action, no to that, yes to this, turning toward courage,
mm,
broken heartstring by broken heartstring. There are so many ways that you have paid and been paid for in terms of like the moment where you can be in the midst of like a historical kind of national, international crisis that we all were in, whether we were like, I'm cheering or what the hell just happened? Because there's 50% were and 50% weren't. No
totally.
matter where you would have fallen on that and that you could turn toward that moment and say, practice first is like to me evidence of the opposite of privilege. Cause I
Mm,
cause I
I
cause I've been
appreciate
walking
that.
with you I've been walking with you a little bit, and I'm like, you have been, um like, rest is the word we're using, and it's really deep transformational inner work, and you have been doing that. And
Mm.
that is why when everything external is like yelling, screaming, "What are we gonna do? Oh, let me just keep going." You might have been sitting in your meditation, yelling, screaming, "What am I gonna do?" What you were doing in that moment, though, is still, like, checking in with yourself, with your pulse, with your heartbeat, with your breath.
Totally.
Okay, and now we step forward out of this pause. Let me look at the world now. Like I just,
Mm,
I have a struggle in general with the word privilege when black and brown folks when we apply it. Like I think I know there are ways we can be privileged.
totally.
In the context of the rest-based work I do, I'm like, what I really see is leaders who are maneuvering.
Mm,
In my tradition, a folk way is finding a way and making a way. And what I see in the rest and work I do is folks who are who are like subverting, rearranging, like doing what we normally do externally and give it away and saying, nah, I'm getting some of this nectar for myself.
mm.
And there's a lot of inner work happening. So I just had this a little bit of a tangent,
I
but I'm
deeply
like,
appreciate that
you have
reframe.
been on such an inner quest and journey and rerouted so many resources intentionally. And does that mean that there were resources to reroute? Yes, and I know that you scraped them up too,
Mm,
right? So I just thank you.
I deeply
But I
appreciate.
also and so what we were talking about is what are the kind of almost practical atomic habits
Mhm.
that support the kind of grand vision of your do and not do. And you were saying you journal and that you daily meditate. And I want to lift those up as accessible practices, even if the access is 1 minute.
Yep,
Because if we haven't been doing any minutes, 1 minute is a unit of change. And
yep.
it sounds so silly. I'm like, it does make a difference. We started with 30 seconds of pausing. And just as the sun rose this morning, I felt the shift in me.
Mhm.
So
Same.
you're not gonna convince me that what I feel in my body when I pause and inhale and exhale didn't just happen and therefore isn't possible.
Mm,
And I'm saying that because I really do. I want these conversations to inspire folks and I also wanted the transmission to come through that you not only can rest, it is it's a necessity. I call it sacred, which maybe puts it outside the realm of necessity, but I'm like, water is sacred too, and we need that.
Totally. Yeah, living is
So
sacred.
what's the kind of atomic not do? What's the thing that you're like, I really honor this boundary, or this not doing shows up in my life on a daily or weekly basis? What is that for you?
Yeah. Um, it's interesting. I'm be radically honest and say it's interesting that thinking of the doing is easier than the not doing.
Yeah.
I think in a way it's for me, it's almost like I wanna flip that the not doing is not sacrificing my sacred ritualistic times, that is a it's really a non-negotiable in my life, to not have ritual around the totality of my life, which I bring into how I work, how I, tried to ritualize the space before this conversation,
Mhm.
the space, really with almost every way that I enter into being with folks, or that sort of interbeing that Buddhists say that is so important, the honoring of the connections. And so, I think I really right now, I'm in a not, being on social media so much, that's a not doing. I go in and out of, how I am engaging with social media because for me, there's a recognition that I do not want to, cause harm to myself through maybe over consuming it, or, not being in a good way and then receiving it in some kind of a way. And so it's almost like the not doing there is not consciously inflicting harm on myself in a world that already has these edges. I'm like, soft. I'm gonna be soft, and I'm not going to nurture the hardness as I feel it. And so that awareness is really fed by the practices, is
Mm.
really fed by I've been doing a lot of nervous system regulation that I both teach in my, or lead in my guidance and sessions that I do for folks. But I'm starting to do a lot of the kind of dry brushing or the havening. It's just something I'm doing in the shower a lot, or just, and because I'm practicing it more, it's like I could just, run to the bathroom and like, ooh, that did so good. I'm not
Let
letting
me shake this
take it
stuff
off
off.
me.
We gotta shake this off. Oh,
A
man.
super accessible practice, and that is so transformative. I just led a retreat where we started with that, and folks later, it was cracking me up. They were like, "I was shedding that bad relationship and that purchase. Why did I do it?" And just all the things that people were saying, I was like, "Yes. Yes to all of that." And we get to do that for ourselves, and it's just here. It's just here. Finger
Right.
and
Something you said, I don't know if this was we had press record, but you told me that one of your not doing practices had been to not rush to respond, to like give things a beat. Because
yes.
here's what happened.
Yeah.
Because the things that ask us to respond, need us to respond, or just urgently want us to respond, because all of those are different. They actually don't stop. Many of us might have multiple emails. There's always something that can be dinging. There's at this point something that says, "Hey, respond to me." And so I was listening to you and going, "That's a really good not practice to go. I don't have to immediately respond to everything." Especially when it's coming through something like an email, right? I
Mhm.
always think, where do the urgent things for my beloveds? That's the urgency for me, right? It's like the human beings that would be contacting me via a text or a call. Like I'm like that could be urgent and still, right?
Yeah.
Can I inhale and exhale and then respond? But that was one practice that you shared that I want to lift up because when we keep flexing the muscle of keep responding. I just see this image of a
Yeah.
list that where it's like I respond to one thing, another thing pops up. I respond to one thing, another pops up. It's incredibly activating,
Mhm.
and we can't actually slow down the external messages coming to us. We can be more aware and cognizant and slow down
Yeah.
our how we respond to them. So I wanted to lift up that practice you shared. So rest is fuel. I say this all the time, and I say it because the more I rest, the more access to creativity and clarity I have, and those 2 things coupled together, um, just I move through the world differently. I make things differently. I offer deliver differently. I share differently. There's more joy. Sometimes people go, Octavia, how'd you write 3 books in 3 years? And I'm like, well, it wasn't
Amazing.
possible until I decided that rest was possible, right? And I know what that sounds like. It doesn't make sense. Yet those 3 tangible books exist in the world, and it happened in 3 years, right? And I didn't actually take some extended rest break or any of that. I just would rest for 12 to 15 minutes a day, sometimes 10 minutes, and then I'd journal afterwards. And this is where like the heart of that creativity came from. One thing we share are like the what was generating that creativity was rest. And so one thing you and I share in common is that we're both artists, we're creatives, we're writers. And I am curious, what is your rest fueling for you in the realm of creativity?
Yeah. Um, it's really been so magical what has unfolded from directly from the rest work and practices in that, as you shared, I'm also a writer and a creative, and I've been, trying to birth that book out, for a minute. You know this all too well. And somehow, before birthing a book, I ended up, co-creating a beautiful, magical exhibit on rest and dreaming, here in Colorado earlier this year. So I became a curator, something that was not on my bingo card, as people say, and in fact, I had such
It
a
was on the divine bingo
yeah.
card, but
That I didn't have the copy of yet. I'm kinda like, "Okay, it's actually okay that I don't know all that's on there." There is something quite magical about that, that kinda gives me that element of excitement and even kinda like, "Okay," like, back to the point of, "I'm resting, I'm healing, what else is possible?"
yes.
And so, I it really this curation, that I did, it was called Sacred and Soft Landings, Soñar y Descansar, which is Spanish for dream and rest. It was, the first immersive, exhibit that a museum here called Museo de las Americas in Denver, Colorado had ever done, and I worked with, 7 BIPOC artists, to create an immersive rest and dream experience for, our communities, and it was a pop-up, it was a month long, and, it was beyond anything I could have ever imagined to have had been a part of creating, envisioning, and co-weaving a live, organic, dynamic site of healing and liberation and rest for intergenerational families and folks to come in and be in and breathe in and heal in, and I can't even it was just so magical, and it sometimes still feels like a dream to me that it even happened, and that has led me to now a curatorial path that I didn't imagine, and I'm actually about to be curating, it was originally gonna be 2 pop-up, shows in Boulder at Boulder Museum of Contemporary Art, and I, just said yes to an opportunity to turn those pop-ups into a full exhibition, a 3-month exhibition, that will be in Boulder at their Museum of Contemporary Art next summer, and I get chills 'cause I've hardly said even, like, told folks about this. It's so fresh, and it's another one of those moments where it's like the intersection of the rest and the love and the liberation work, meeting a moment where we are, that I'm like, "Oh my god," I know in my communities that so many folks are just reeling and we're not sure what's gonna happen, and much like you and I talked about, this might have been even before, we were recording that, the truth is in what we're talking about and what we're about right now. And I just thought, "Oh, thank God, thank diosas, thank ancestors that I said yes to this because I get to work with artists to create another site of healing, of rest, of love and liberation next summer." And for me, it's this both and of just knowing, of feeling such a responsibility in that, and then also going like, "No, you got this. You're in your practices. This is what you're about. This is another expression of that you get to breathe out." And it's like, it's very tender because, to the point in that reframe that you offered earlier about the privilege, it's like, "No, I have knocks and scrapes that that this rest is helping, be that like sana, that pomada on those cuts and scrapes that then get to become these beautiful things in the world." And, I started a book finally this summer. I've had many starts to books, and, that is finally happening. I'm fingers crossed gonna get into a fellowship for writers, and I just feel like my creativity is almost on fire, and it's just like it really is it's like really centered in that sacral chakra of where I already just have all this fire in me, and it's like I'm moving it. I'm tending to it, and I'm moving it out in the world, and I'm getting it to do it with so many other beautiful hearts, and I'm so grateful, because I know that all the radical pauses that I took, that I take, that I'm continuing to practice are what is going to help, it's like the wind blowing that fire out into the world.
Mm. Congratulations. I'm so excited about that, and thank you for sharing that with me and us here. So, it's important. I hope the listener is having a restorative experience as they just meander through with us as they listen. And it's important for me for us to rest in our bodies, for us to rest in our bodies. So, what part of you is most in need of rest?
Mm.
And if you're listening, just ask yourself that question right now. What part of me is most in need of rest right now?
I feel like my mind a bit, it's kinda I'm a double Gemini. Don't judge or judge, it's okay. I got a Virgo rising, everyone. There is deep grounding there, but definitely I feel like, the mind is activated, and I say the mind because I feel like resting my mind will help bring me back into my heart and my spirit.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. And so I'm going to invite you to, I know before we started recording, a lot happens before we press record. Like it's fun over here.
It always is.
But you shared that you'd made like this nest, a rest nest in your chair. And normally we do this rest nest, we do it on the ground, but you made your desk chair with
An
like
impromptu decision.
I love it. I like it's very fuzzy and soft looking. And so if you want to sit there, you can. And if the listener wants to make a nest of their chair, that just means put pillows and blankets, surround yourself, make it extra cozy and soft and welcoming for yourself.
A wrap.
But if you can sit up or you can lay down, and then I'll let you choose what you want to do with your camera. Okay.
Okay.
And if you could go on mute, that's helpful too. Mm.
I think even though I'm in my chair, I think there's a couch on the other side of here.
Okay, let's do that.
And so I'm gonna come off camera and then go there. So and I'm just gonna name I'm doing that for myself because I can. My body is able to, and I feel like that in this moment for me will help me receive it, just
Yeah.
a little differently.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's all an unlearning and learning. And so part of the rest practice is how we set up for rest. Yeah. And so it has already started just from the listening, and it
Mm,
continues as you decide, am I going to sit in the chair? Am I going to go lay down? Am I going to press pause and then come back to it later so I can really experience the practice? So go ahead and do
okay,
what you need to do, Christina. Um, yeah. Okay. So do you want to take the time to set up to get 1% more comfortable, to ask yourself, what else do I need right now? What else does my body need right now? And part of that is when we can, in this structured practice, attend to where the body might be speaking loudly, like say if the low back is like, hello, hello, speaking, usually in a strong sensation, putting the pillow or blanket under your knee supports that in quieting down. So when the body can feel even 1% more supported and held, it helps the mind not be in that constant dialogue with the low back or with the whatever part of the physical body feels unsupported. So to rest the mind, we're going to start with, how's your body? And can you support your body by 1 to 5 more percent? And then sometimes supporting the body is as simple as becoming aware of the support beneath you, the chair, the floor, the earth. Notice that you are being held right now, and that awareness of being held is an invitation to soften the face, soften the neck, release the shoulders and elbows, relax the hands and wrists, relax the wrists and elbows, relax the shoulders and neck, soften the collarbones, soften around the chest, the abdomen, the hips, the knees, the ankles, the feet and toes. Soften around the feet, the toes, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the abdomen, chest, collarbone, shoulders, neck, face, soften the back of the head, the back of the neck, upper back, middle back, lower back, glutes, back of thighs, back of knees, calves, heel, bottoms of feet, bottoms of feet, heel, calves, back of knees, back of thighs, glutes, low back, middle back, upper back, shoulder blades, back of neck, back of head, top of head, front of the body, softens, relaxes, back of the body, softens, relaxes, top of the head to the bottom of the feet, bottom of the feet to the top of the head, and top of the head back down to the bottom of the feet. All of this softens breath by breath, breath by breath, breath by breath. Be aware of the breath. Be aware of the inhale. Be aware of the exhale. Being aware isn't shifting or changing or doing, it is just pay attention and notice. There's an inhale, there's an exhale. Then there's an inhale and a pause. There's an exhale and a pause. Be aware of the breath. Be aware of the breath. Be aware of the breath. On the next inhalation, just silently say, let. And on the next exhalation, just silently say, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. Continue to repeat that. And it is the most kind, gentle, and also bold invitation for the mind. Inhale, let. Exhale, go. You'll hear my voice again in about 1 minute. If the words inhale, let, exhale, go float away, just let them float away. Inhale, let exhale go. Be aware of your breath. Be aware of the support beneath your body. Be aware of your body. Notice what you notice. Notice what you feel. Notice what rested. Notice what maybe woke up a little bit. Bring movement back into your body by wiggling just fingers and toes or just shifting your head from left to right, side to side. And as you prepare to come back, silently repeat once again, inhale, let exhale go. And then with the next breath, whisper, let go. And then as you come all the way back, in your regular speaking voice, just say out loud, let go. And then when you're ready, you come back. You can journal, you can free write, you can simply sit, but just notice and feel. And so whenever you're ready, you can come back and I just want to know how was that for you?
I got woozy, so I was like, "Video on, no
You
off."
were like, I'll just
I got cold, a reminder, even I have all the things, and I to relax the what is it? The down regulating of our nervous system makes us
you get
cold.
you get cooler. Yeah, you cool
Mm.
off. You cool off. Um,
You know what's interesting, Octavia? This hasn't happened to me before that I can remember, but I got really giddy, like, I just feel like I have the giggles, like, I feel like I have a bit of, like, an emotional, like, giggle release happening of just, like, I think the letting go, that was beautiful, and I felt like there were a lot of things that were coming through, even a little bit of, like, some of the activations of things that that are on my heart that I'm talking about and just kinda letting go, and then I just got really calm, you know, it's funny I said my head or my mind because I felt like the back of my head really released, it's why it was, I think, good for me to lay down. And then I just got really, like, giggly. I just felt like elation. Like, I was like, "Oh, I just wanna just laugh here." Like, just, like, real
I
beautiful
hear
joy.
I hear unburdened. I hear unburdened and really the invitation to let go and rest and other things is really digesting and integrating. Right? So, let go is a little bit it's kinda like a misnomer, meaning, like, to let go, you have to actually, like, has to move through, process. What I
Mhm.
love about rest is, things come up and they can move, right? We get the option, we can chase it, we can pull it back, if it's not too much, and sometimes it is very much too much, and in that case, I say we do actually move our fingers, move our toes, open our eyes. We shift out of the stillness if it's too much. Too much. If we have the capacity and ability to, something will come up and it moves unless we pull it back in. And then sometimes I've, my other anchoring practice is restorative yoga. I've been in a restorative yoga practice and just started laughing. So I got something freed up, right? It's like a system response. So
Mm.
thank you for sharing that. Is there one word? How are you leaving?
I feel joyful. It's like, I almost I'm like, "Can I make a word between grateful and joyful?" Like, I feel that.
Good joyful. Good joy. I feel
Joyful.
good joy.
I feel so much good joy.
Let's not start that way. I kind of like it, but I don't want to hear it too much. Good joy. So, as we're being joyful on 11/11/2024, it feels
Mm,
important to name that we have um, found and been found by gratefulness and joy even today, right?
mm,
Because we connected with each other and we rested. That feels
yeah.
powerful to me. It is powerful. I would like for you to tell us where we can find you. How can we access your offerings, your creations, your rest, and your work?
Yes. So you can find me currently on socials. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Borderland Soul. And then because I do my work through my consulting, all my work right now is under my sort of more political consulting name. It is Aguilar Strategies, is where I do my movement doula work. I'm trying to shift that a little bit, but for now, it's www.aguiladstrategies.com. And then, of course, reaching out to me personally as well. I think maybe we might be um, offering out other ways of getting in contact with me, and
Yeah,
then
it
just
will be in
kind
the
of
show notes. Whatever you want to be in the show notes, it will be in the
beautiful.
show notes. Yeah. Be-
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
this was beautiful. Thank you so much, Octavia. Love you and just grateful for all you breathe and build and create in this world.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. And you are still here. I hope that means that you enjoy the episode. Before moving on to the next thing, I have an invitation for you. If you can, pause and notice your breath. Notice your inhale and notice your exhale. As you reflect on this episode, what did you hear that was interesting or inspiring? What did you learn? What did this episode wake up within you? What did this episode allow to rest within you? Thank you again so much for being here. You are sacred. Your rest is sacred. And you being here and you staying here affirm that you can be devoted to rest, that you can be a leader and devoted to rest. Until next time.